most excellent friends, and welcome to episode 2 of Bill and Ted's Excellent Podcast. I'm your host, Linda Kay, and I am also the web dudess of Bill and Ted's Excellent Online Adventure, which you can find at billandted.org. And I'd like to thank everybody for joining us again. So great to have you back. And welcome to all of our new listeners who may be discovering us on iTunes or through the website. Now, you may have noticed that we had some new introductory music, which I'm very excited about. My very good friend and fantastic musician, singer, songwriter, Steve Bonino, has consented to let me use some of his music as our underscoring music for this podcast, which we're very excited about because Steve is not only totally about peace and love, which Bill and Ted are also very much about, but he totally rocks. He's a musician's musician, a singer's singer. He is a most excellent dude. So we hope you'll enjoy listening to his music, and we're going to play a song of his at the end of the program as well. So I hope you'll stay tuned for that. It's most perfect for the holiday season, I think. And hopefully in the future, we will be able to introduce you to some new independent artists because Bill and Ted are really all about music. And I know a lot of Bill and Ted fans are also great music fans. And there's a lot of great artists out there who are independent, not necessarily signed to recording contracts, whose music deserves to be heard. And we hope to feature some of these artists on upcoming podcasts. So if you know of an artist or you are an artist who would like your music featured on our show, then drop us a line at lindakbabe@billandted.org and let us know about yourselves. We'd love to hear from you. Well, I have to say I'm extremely touched and excited by the support that you've all shown for this podcast after just our first episode. And I really hope that we can bring you some exciting features in the future. One thing that I would like to do is, since 2014 will be the 25th anniversary of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, I'd like to know if anybody out there has any interesting, fun, exciting, or touching stories about seeing the movie when it first came out. We would like to hear from you. So if you would like to share your story with us on this podcast, do a Skype call. We'll interview you. Again, contact me at lindakbabe@billandted.org and let me know. And again, love to hear from you. So we're very excited about our show today because we have an outstanding and totally non-heinous guest, David Linck. And if you don't know who David Linck is, you're going to know. And he is a dude who's in the know. He's got the skinny on everything to do with Excellent Adventure. So stay tuned. Very soon we're going to get right to it. But first we're going to have a little bit of news. And the big news this week is the completion of Alex Winter's Kickstarter campaign for his upcoming documentary, Deep Web, The Untold Story of Bitcoin and the Silk Road. We talked to Alex last week to help promote the Kickstarter campaign, and it completed this last week. And we're very pleased to say that the campaign reached its funding goal. The goal was to raise $75,000, and in the end, they went $3,700 above that. So they raised $78,700, which I know Alex is going to put to great use in making this very interesting and important documentary. There were a total of 1,222 backers, and a lot of people took advantage of all those most outstanding rewards that Alex was offering. So congratulations to Alex. We're so excited that you reached your goal. And I know they're busy already working on the documentary, doing the interviews. So we'll keep you up to date with what's happening with that. And we hope everybody enjoys all of their rewards, especially the Bill and Ted related awards. And we'll bring you more information, hopefully, about these special screenings that they are doing for Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey. Just a reminder that Keanu's movie, 47 Ronin, will be released in theaters tomorrow, Christmas Day. So get out there and check it out. It looks like it's going to be an incredibly awesome film. And we're going to cut the news short this week to bring you our interview. I'd like to welcome as our guest today, David Linck, who was the unit publicist on Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Welcome to the show, Dave.
Hey, it's great. And my professional name is David, but all the Bill and Ted people can call me Dave.
Hey, see, I'm saying Dave because I'm looking at your picture here on Skype. It says Dave Linck because he's being
Right.
cash with us. But yes, David Linck. And tell us a little bit about how you got into working in Hollywood at all.
Well, I started as I was a journalist. I started at the LA Times out of college, and I worked my way up there. And then I went to a magazine called Box Office Magazine, which some of the fans may know. It's the trade magazine for exhibition or theater owners.
Right.
And I learned how to review films there, and you can still see some of my reviews online. I remember thank God they're right. I think my E.T. and Blade Runner ones are still they're still around.
Oh, awesome. So you're a big lover of the movies. You must have been a big movie fan.
Huge movie fan. And
Ah,
I
cool.
went from there and became the head of entertainment news for CNN.
Wow.
And then I was the head I was the head producer West Coast for MTV Music News. And then I became a publicist at Fox, 20th Century Fox, and worked on movies right away, such as Romancing the Stone, Revenge of the Nerds, Buckaroo Banzai, another big fan
Oh,
favorite.
yeah.
So I did a lot of movie work before I became a unit publicist in 1987, and my first movie was Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Oh, wow. Most excellent. So how did you happen to become a unit publicist? Where did you make that jump specifically?
Well, it's an interesting job that's very hard to get into because you have to have a background, and
Hmm.
I had a really good background for unit publicity, and that's a job I had never really considered. I knew it existed from my time at Fox. I would meet the unit publicists on our movies, and unit publicity is a job that's existed since the early days of filmmaking, since studios
Hmm.
have been existing. Usually the job was done by an in-house person who
Hmm.
would handle 3 or 4 movies at a time back in the old MGM era and RKO and Warner Brothers.
Oh, yeah. When everything was in-house, then with each studio had their own like thing going on.
Correct, correct.
Yes.
And then ever since the 50s, it's been an outsourced job.
Hmm.
So I work like a grip or a gaffer. I'm paid as an employee per movie, and I'm a freelancer, and I've done it now for 26 years.
Wow. Isn't that
Now, the
incredible?
way I got the job is interesting because it's tied to Fox. My vice president at Fox and one of my mentors was Elizabeth Landon, who, when she left Fox in 1985, became briefly a unit publicist before she moved into doing EPK or behind the scenes video. Now, she had done a couple movies and knew Robert Court, one of the producers of Bill and Ted.
Right.
Robert asked her to do the unit, and she just didn't want to go and leave her husband and go to Arizona at that particular time.
Right.
So she called me up and said, "Why don't you go do this unit? I think you'd like it. It's a kind of a fun movie." I was writing movies actually at the time. I had left Fox, and I was doing some freelance work for MTV at that time. And I said, "Yeah, I'll go do that. What the heck?" I mean, thinking it would be a 3-month gig and I'd be back in my house. But I never stopped. That's 26 years ago.
Oh,
So
wow.
anyway, I drove. I was saying to you earlier, I was so naive about the job that I drove my own car there, never thinking they gave me a rental car,
Right.
and didn't know they gave me per diem until they handed me money the first week, and I went, "What's this for?"
Oh, no. You were just a babe in the woods. You had no idea how this location stuff worked at all yet.
I tell you, I was a 33-year-old babe in the woods.
Isn't that fun? Hey, you know
This
what?
shows
It's a new job. You got to learn the ropes.
That's when you think you know something, you don't. But anyway, I was so enthralled with the movie immediately. Everybody was very nice on the crew, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
And Stephen Herrick, the director, was a wonderful guy, very warm guy. He had a vision for Bill and Ted that I thought was hilarious, and I got to know first Ed Solomon and Chris Matheson, the two writers, and know them very well and their sense of humor.
Right.
And when I read the first draft, I knew this movie would be a hit, sincerely.
Okay. And when did you read the first draft? Was that after you got on location, or you kind of went in blind, or did you have an idea of what you were sort of getting into?
No, I went in blind. I read it my first night in the Holiday Inn in Tempe, Arizona.
And are you like a fan of that kind of like Monty Python sort of comedy that you got it right away and said, "Oh, yeah."
Well, I'm sure you know that the production designer was Roy Ford Smith,
Yes.
who did.
Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Right. And I befriended Roy right away so I could talk to him about that. But
Oh,
see,
yeah.
I had interviewed all the Pythons before that.
Oh, right. Okay. Yes.
I had talked with Michael Palin and Terry and
Mm-hmm.
Both Terrys and John Cleese. The only one I never talked to was Graham.
Right.
But I'm a huge fan. What I saw in Bill and Ted was a very interesting twist on a youth comedy, and I love the absurdity of the humor. Right up my alley.
Right. So you're working in Tempe. It was filmed around Tempe and Phoenix, right? Area or Scottsdale?
No, we were based in Tempe, and we shot all around the Phoenix area. We shot a little bit in Scottsdale. We shot a little bit in the Metro Center Mall, which is where all the mall stuff was done. We would go there when the mall closed, and we would shoot all night and all morning, and we would leave like rats off a sinking ship every morning. Dead tired after leaving the Metro Center. We used to call it the Metro Center from hell. And I remember sitting out there at 3 in the morning eating dinner out in the mall parking lot with the cast and crew.
Right.
But we had the best time. And the Metro Center is where we did the EPK, or behind the scenes video interviews, which I think people can still see.
Yeah, we have one of those on. And you're right, there's some shots at the mall where Alex and Keanu are goofing around doing some sort of a disemboweling mime thing. So your schedule was really, because a lot of these scenes were shot at night, or a good portion of it, because this all takes place over a 24-hour period.
I know. Okay, but let's go back to the beginning, as they say.
Yes.
I think I'll set a few things straight.
Okay, yes, please do.
Originally, let's talk about Rufus first.
Okay.
Rufus was written for Billy D. Williams.
Now that I did not know.
You did not know that?
No,
That
that
is
I did not know.
a huge Bill and Ted thing. That's why he's supposed to be a black man. He's supposed to be Billy D. Williams. He's written as a hip guy. And
Yes.
the second choice, okay, Billy D. Williams passed at a time where it was very inconvenient for the producers because we were starting to shoot in a couple days.
Okay.
And he got cold feet or whatever happened to him. I never found out the real reason because you never know. But they went then to Frank Zappa.
Whoa.
Now, have you ever heard that? No.
No.
And for a day, Frank Zappa was Rufus.
So he actually came to do it.
No, he didn't come.
But he was cast.
He was being talked to, and he was the guy if he said yes.
Well,
But but then he said no, and they went. Thank God. I don't know who had the idea to go to George, but they did, and he made the whole movie just a whole different experience for all of us.
That's incredible.
And one of the first things we shot was when Rufus shows up at the Circle K.
Okay.
Which used to be called in the original script the 7-Eleven, but 7-Eleven wouldn't jump into bed with
Right.
us.
Isn't that funny?
Well, something came to be afoot at the Circle K at that
Right.
point.
Which I think is great because it seems less commercial. It's almost more kitschy. Well, it was meant to be.
Yeah, but it's kind of weird that, because in my script it says 7-Elevens.
That's 7-Eleven's loss. How much free publicity would they have gotten from that?
Yeah, there we go. But people, the story about E.T. and M&M's.
Why it ended up being Reese's Pieces.
That's right, it was M&M's. And they, for some reason, some idiot in a marketing meeting said no, and whoops, Reese's
Lack
Pieces.
of foresight.
That's Hollywood, Linda.
And you as a unit publicist are saying, you fools!
Well, I was blissfully ignorant of everything that was going on because I was learning how to make a movie. And anyway, as it went on, I got to know the boys. And
Yes.
one of the first things we shot was the Wild West.
Okay.
That is up in Carefree, Arizona,
Yes.
which is above Scottsdale and Phoenix, towards the mountains.
The Carefree Studios.
Well, it was already created Western town that we were shooting in.
Okay.
We didn't build it, in other words.
Right, yeah. It took us a while to figure out where that location was because there's another Old West town out that direction that I've been to. I think they open it as a tourist attraction now, but that's not the same one.
You're thinking of Tucson, and it's not that.
Yes, exactly.
This is Carefree, and it's just a little set that they had made. It's not a big deal. The other place you're thinking of in Tucson is where John Wayne shot, and that's a much bigger set. If you look at this set, it's only one street, and there's only a couple buildings. And, the bar where we shot, we messed that up pretty good.
Yeah.
we broke a few windows, but we brought everything into that empty space and created the interior of that bar.
So you brought in all the breakaway glass bottles and the breakaway glass window and all that and set it up.
Absolutely.
So now what is your job? So let's see, you're on the set there at the Old West town in Carefree, and you've got Dan Shore and Keanu Reeves and Alex, and as a unit publicist, what are you doing on the set?
Okay. A unit publicist, even though I was learning as I was going along on Bill and Ted,
Mm-hmm.
a unit publicist, in short, takes care of all the marketing for the movie while it's shooting. In other words, you're the eyes and ears of the studio for everything that has to do with marketing. And a lot of that job is getting the elements in line for when the film is released. You want to have three things going. You want to have your behind-the-scenes video, better known as EPK or electronic press kit.
Right.
You want to gather information for your press notes that you're going to write at the end of the movie. It's kind of like doing a term paper on the movie. You'll be writing anecdotal stories about the making of the movie, who made it, biographies of those people, etc. And that is put in the press kit that's given to press when the film is released so that they can write about the film, whether or not they're going to review it or do articles or whatever. That's the purpose of a production kit.
Gotcha.
And also, you're bringing press in to do interviews. You're coordinating local press
Right.
who always want to come on set. You're bringing dignitaries to the set, anybody who wants to come, mayors,
Okay.
congressmen, senators, they always want to come to set.
Gotcha.
You're also doing a lot of diplomacy among filmmakers because you need to get your job done despite production. I have to do all my interviews and all my stuff in between lighting setups. I have to kind of steal people away and have them sit down in a director's chair and do an interview. Now, the other third part of that trifecta is I oversee the still photography.
Okay.
And you have a still photographer next to the camera every day taking shots of what we're shooting and also taking shots of behind the scenes and portraits of the stars and whatever. And the photographer on Bill and Ted was my very good friend, Philip V. Caruso. He was still out there doing his thing and has done, he went on from Bill and Ted and did so many wonderful films, including many by Martin Scorsese.
Oh, wow. Well, there was so many talented people who worked on Excellent Adventure.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of surprising because it was such a little film. Nobody really expected it to do much. And you were all working under De Laurentiis at that point, right?
It was a De Laurentiis movie. It was not an Orion movie. DEG, De Laurentiis Entertainment Group is what it was. And Blaise Noto, Noto, was the head of publicity, and he hired me, and he gave the go-ahead when I was suggested by Elizabeth Landon to do the movie. So he basically hired me, and I would report back to him. And, it was actually a very easy film to do. It was a perfect movie for me to start with because I had a lot of actors who hadn't done a lot of work. I mean, Keanu and Alex were not the names they were about to become.
Right.
And we really had nobody in the film that had a lot of experience except George Carlin and a couple of the, historical characters.
Right.
And even they weren't big names. Clifford David, who plays Beethoven or Beethoven, was actually a star on Broadway.
Right.
And you can look him up. He's done a lot of Broadway work before he did Bill and Ted. And Tony, who played Socrates,
Tony Steedham.
had a hell of a career. And he became, all the historical characters and I became very good friends, including Jane Wiedlin. And Jane Wiedlin and I went out on a memorable outing to see U2 doing the Joshua Tree tour. She and I went out and saw that one night. We had a great time.
How incredible is that?
And what's funny is that afterwards, she and I and the two people we were with went to an ice cream place that's just like the one in Bill and Ted.
Oh, you were like a Farrell's or something.
Like a Farrell's. Like
Ziggy Pig.
And of course, you know that the Ziggy Pig waiters are the two writers of the movie.
Ed and Chris, that's right.
That's right.
So when you're working on the movie and they have like a first unit and a second unit, are you always with the first unit or are you staying where the principals are or how does that work?
Pretty much. Second unit means stunts, okay?
Right.
Second unit means stuff away from the stars. Even though occasionally second unit will borrow a star, usually you're doing it with doubles and you're doing driving shots, stunts, things that don't require the actors.
Right.
And the second unit director is usually the stunt coordinator.
Gotcha.
But not always, but usually. In fact, Dan Bradley, by the way, the stunt coordinator of Bill and Ted, is the big bad dude in the Wild West bar fight. That's Dan Bradley, his big mustache.
Cool. No, I didn't know that either. That's interesting.
I'm going to tell you so many Bill and Ted things today. You're going to flip out.
I'm already flipping. This is awesome. And the thing about Excellent Adventure that I get is all the people working working on it are so passionate about film and really seem to love what they were doing. And Alex and Keanu are obviously no exceptions. I mean, Alex was a filmmaker himself, still is, and now Keanu's getting into being a filmmaker. But they both have the
You're
love
right.
of music and film. So what was it like working with them?
Well, they were young guys, and they formed a bond very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I got there, those two guys were pals. And the one thing we all shared in common was basketball.
Ah.
And we all lived in the same complex of condos in Tempe. A lot of us left the wonderful Holiday Inn and went to live in these condos, and that was the place to be, believe
Yeah.
me. And every Saturday or Sunday, Keanu and I and several other guys would go out and play basketball. And after a while, everybody came out to the basketball game.
Wow, awesome.
So we would have a huge basketball game, and then we'd all go eat dinner or whatever. It was a very close-knit group of people. And I got to tell you, Keanu Reeves is a fantastic basketball player.
Oh, cool. Well, he's very athletic.
He is athletic, and also he played bass all the time in his room. He was already playing bass, and, that led him to his band later on.
Right.
And also, another thing about Keanu that a lot of people don't know is that he has a sister that looks very much like him, Kim. She came to the set when we were doing the Wild West. She was there early.
Oh, wow.
And I met her, and I thought, God, she's beautiful.
Yeah.
And she looked very much like Keanu, and, you can tell they were brother and sister.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't George Carlin's daughter in the futuristic dome scene? I've heard that.
Absolutely. She's in that scene. She has the big bow in her hair, and she has her own close-up in that very quick selection. Now, also, let's go to that scene.
Yes.
Where the three most important people in the world are floating in air, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, those were supposed to be three other rock stars.
ZZ Top?
No.
I heard
no,
that somewhere.
No, I never heard that. But they were three other people, and, for the life of me, I can't remember who they were, but we wound up with Fee and Martha Davis of the Motels
Right.
and Clarence Clemens.
Right.
And they were all wonderful, and I since became friends with all three of them.
Oh, awesome.
And like Martha and I talk on Facebook, and Clarence would have me backstage. In fact, the year after Bill and Ted, I went to a Springsteen show and saw him backstage and brought him pictures from Bill and Ted.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, pictures of him acting in the movie.
He must have loved that. I heard that another person who worked on the movie told me he saw him at a hotel somewhere and he gave him an air guitar and he totally returned it. He was like, just still love that.
It's funny, I just saw Fee Waybill and the Tubes last year.
Oh.
And all we talked about was Bill and Ted.
Oh, yeah.
That's all we talked about. And he's a sweetheart. The Tubes still tour. And anybody out there, go see the Tubes. They're wonderful.
Oh, yes. I mean, they're awesome people.
It's a rock and roll comedy, really. I mean, there's a lot of rock and roll in it. And it's about rock and roll and about the love of music. And these guys, these guys just want to be in a band.
Right.
Right? Like anybody else.
Yeah, and not even to be famous. I mean, they sort of talk about being famous, but they're doing it anyway. It's just the love of it that's making them do it. They don't know they're going to be the most important people in the whole world someday, till the end of the movie. So it is.
Right.
It's that love of something, which, like I said before, sort of ties in with the people working in the movie. They were making the movie because they loved it. They loved the idea of this little story and these great characters that Ed and Chris created.
Right. And the producers were very intent on making a very hip movie. Scott Krupp and Robert Court
Yes.
were certainly intent on that. And they worked for Ted Field at Interscope Pictures.
Okay.
And Ted came to set a couple times, but basically Scott was there every day. And our wonderful unit production manager was Patricia Witcher, who's become a very famous producer. And I remember that I still see Scott from time to time. And after I did Bill and Ted, it was Robert Court who liked what I did on Bill and Ted enough to offer me 3 Men and a Baby. And from there on, my career was made after that because I did five hit movies in a row thanks to Robert Court.
So you must have done a good job on this movie.
Oh, I just lucked. I had no idea what I was doing at all. Are you kidding me? Here's the thing. At my house in California right now is a box, And in that box are hundreds of photos from Bill and Ted.
Oh, wow. I may have to pay you a visit sometime.
I mean, I have a lot of photos that I just, happen
Yeah.
to keep around.
Oh, that's all. No, that's wonderful. Well, that was your job, was to record what was going on while the movie was being made. So you're the guy to talk to.
Kind of. It's true, but I mean, I had such a love for it, and
Hmm.
I remember the many nights we'd be out shooting, and I'd never worked overnight before on a movie, and
Right.
I would sit there and I'd BS with George Carlin about anything. He was up for talking about anything.
Oh, yeah.
Fascinating guy with a great intellect, and he was a very, at that point he was kind of young. He was just, I think, barely 50
Right.
when we did the movie, and
Hmm.
it's so sad that he passed away.
Yes.
I would see him from time to time, and he'd laugh about the movie, and he'd say, that movie gave me a new lease on life for my career.
Right. Because I know he was really interested in acting, and he was incredible.
He was incredible, and I think he surprised himself on how good he was, but
Hmm.
he was just very natural, and if you watch the movie, he's having a really good time
Yeah.
doing it. Now, of course, everybody knows the story about the ending, right, of the movie.
Of the prom scene that was, but then
The prom
wasn't.
scene that we shot that will never see the light of day.
Right. Do you know why that was changed?
I don't know the exact reason because we did shoot the end of the movie at a prom,
Mm-hmm.
and the boys take the princesses,
Yes.
and in fact, Diane Franklin and I are still in touch. That's interesting.
Yeah, I saw you guys are friends on Facebook. Diane just wrote that book on her
Right.
career, which is really a nice, nice book. Everybody should pick that up too. She's a sweetheart.
Now Kim is a producer.
Yes, big screen entertainment, and they do some really cool looking movies.
She's done quite well. I'm very surprised because when she was in the movie, she was very much a very kind of innocent young actress who had never really been in Hollywood at all, and she got the bug and became a producer.
Isn't that
In fact,
incredible?
one of the PAs on the movie became a famous actress.
Oh.
What is Margene Holden is her
Yes.
name. Margene Holden was a PA in the office, and she got the bug and became a movie star. So anyway, let me tell you about some specific scenes.
'Cause I'm sure you have some very memorable things, like what was the most difficult thing to shoot? What was the funnest,
Well, okay, we were on a budget.
Yes.
And I remember when they were talking about how to design the phone booth. And somebody got the bright idea to just take a naked umbrella and stick an umbrella skeleton on top of it. And that's what it is. It's an umbrella skeleton.
That's what it looks like.
And that's what it is.
That's funny.
We didn't have a lot of money, but it wasn't a teeny movie either. It wasn't a cash-strapped film, and
Right.
we never had any problems. We were shooting a regular movie, but sometimes they just kind of went with things like that. And
Yeah.
another thing is that the final exam, which takes place in the auditorium, okay, Chris and Ed came up with an idea to make the ending much bigger
Yes.
because the ending originally was shot already in a classroom.
Yes.
And they decided to expand it and get a little bit more money and more scope. And they decided to write it for like a rock concert inside the big auditorium there in the high school where we shot. And that's what we did.
And you were there when they shot the classroom scene as well.
I was there for the whole thing.
So do you feel that, because I've seen pictures, we have pictures on the website of the classroom scene,
Right.
and it does seem like it would work much better in the auditorium, having never seen the missing scenes from Excellent Adventure.
Yeah, Linda, it's just so much bigger.
Yeah.
And it works so much better. And I remember Bernie Casey coming up to me when we were filming in the big auditorium because it was the last thing we shot.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "This will make the movie another $25 million."
Ah, yes.
I said, "You're a wise man. I think you're right." And it did.
Yeah.
Even though it's cut up a lot, because we shot so much stuff. You can see the cut up. There's a lot of things the historical characters are doing that you only see a couple, little snaps of. But we did everything. I mean, we shot everything in there.
Sure.
And that, like I say, were the last shots that we did on location.
Right.
The stuff, the actual ending of the film, which is in the kids' garage, okay, that was done 6 months to a year later.
Wow.
When Orion took over the movie, I think they decided that they wanted to have another ending shot.
Okay.
So they shot the stuff in the garage, and you can tell it's a little different from the rest of the movie.
It has a different look, a different feel. Their clothes are different, but it fits too because it's supposed to take place later than the 24-hour period that we've just been through. So it works oddly enough, but you can tell it's sort of set apart from the rest of the film.
You can kind of tell. It's just like
Yeah.
Anchorman. You know, Anchorman has that whole panda thing, and Anchorman was added a year later. There's
That's
a whole
really
other
funny.
ending to Anchorman, but that's another story.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, now I unfortunately, like everybody else, just about everybody didn't get to go to Europe. But after we finished in Arizona, everybody went over for 2 weeks and shot on those locations in Europe.
Mm.
You know, where they get the princesses.
Right,
And
at the castle was in Italy, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Italy, and I think Britain and Italy. I'm not really privy to that because I wasn't there.
So did they have another unit publicist doing the stuff in Europe, or did they just not have that job there?
Boy, they better not have. No,
A
there was not.
scab. Wait a
There
minute.
wasn't another one. No, there wasn't. It was just me staying home.
That's
But,
not fair.
Well, you know what?
You know what? And that's why there's so little information out there about that part of the shoot.
That's probably right. You know who would talk about it? Alex could talk about it.
Alex has posted some pictures, and also Kimberly sent us a couple of really nice pictures of them on the set in Italy.
Well, Steve and Tracy Herrick should have stuff.
Yeah.
Let me think some more specific scenes because, it's been a while.
I'm trying to think of some of the things that were missing. Originally, I know the other kids in school, Buffy and Ox and Jody, were bigger characters. So they had more scenes with Bill and Ted, like on the school bus. And
I don't know about that.
Okay.
I never knew about that. If that happened, I have no idea.
Okay.
But I know the first week we shot at the school and we shot at the Circle K.
Okay.
And I think the second week we shot at Wild West, and then I think we just went from there.
Right.
And like I say, the last scenes we did were the homecoming scenes, which were excised from the movie.
Right.
But we were out there at night a lot. I remember freezing my ass off with George Carlin standing outside of Ted's house.
Yes.
In a scene where George comes back and grabs Ted. And he was just thinking, oh, man, this is Arizona. Why am I, dying of frostbite out here?
Because it's the desert and it gets cold at night.
And it was February. So there's that.
Funny.
It was cold, man.
And those house scenes were shot at people's actual houses, right?
Those are actual houses. None of those scenes. In fact, here's a hair-raising tale. Okay, at Bill's house, where Missy is watering the lawn and they all show up.
Yes.
They all drop out of the sky. Well, we had everybody in that thing. We were testing out how to lift it because they had a counterweight system, and there were weights on one side and a long arm holding the phone booth on the other, and we would raise it up out of camera range and then drop it down on the ground.
Oh.
So the first time we were doing that, thank God this didn't hit anybody. That whole apparatus fell in this private family's backyard.
Oh my God.
And luckily nobody was killed, but you know what? Somebody easily could have been crushed by it.
Well, yeah.
But it didn't happen. So there we go. But I remember Amy Stock, who is now Amy Stock Poynton, was looking out the window, and she goes, "Come here. I think this thing's going to fall." And it did. And everybody just kind of ran away from it, the special effects guys. And
Oh, thank
it
goodness she
fell.
saw that.
Oh, yeah. She was like, I'm glad I wasn't outside watering.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm sure she was thrilled to get out there and okay, let's do the scene now. And she's like, is that thing sturdy now? Or
Do we have to get in that? The thing about Missy Stock, Amy Stock, Missy, was, Mom. That she was in real life, she's such a sweet, innocent girl.
Yeah.
And she's supposed to be playing this, vixen that had married Bill's dad. And
then would go on to marry Ted's dad and Denomalos.
Yeah, she just kind of worked her way through. But she was, she's a very nice person. And Dan Shore was a really nice guy. I don't see much of Dan. I don't know what he's doing. What is he doing these days?
Dan Shore's working now on documentary films, and he has a video and media company called Show Division. And he did a DVD release called Looking for America, a Saipan story, which looks really fascinating. So Dan is still out there working.
Oh, good. He's still doing things. That's great.
Oh, yes, yeah. He seems like such an incredibly interesting interesting and sweet guy.
Dan was the best. You know, we were also tired. We didn't go out and party much. Now, like I say, on the weekends, we would play basketball and have a meal. But we all lived in the same complex. But occasionally we would go out, and like I say, Jane Whelan and I did go to the Joshua Tree tour. It was the very first night of the U2 Joshua Tree tour. And because she was Jane Whelan, and also, by the way, the two people with us, the guy that came with us knew Jane. His name was Steve Pond. He was a writer for Rolling Stone. He was there covering it for Rolling Stone. So what nobody knows is that the day before, Steve and I, we were allowed to go to the U2 rehearsal. And at the rehearsal, Bono fell on a light and cut his throat and crushed his larynx to the point where they were going to cancel the tour.
Oh, my God.
And he said, no, I'm going to go on tonight. So the next night he went on, and that's the show that Jane and Steve and I went to. And I had my date was a production assistant named Janet Elsasser on the movie. She and I were dating, and then Steve and Jane knew each other, so the four of us went out. And we were able to go backstage afterwards. That was fantastic. But the whole show was notable because the audience sang for Bono.
Oh, wow.
He would start a song, and he'd go, and then everybody would sing the lyric for him.
Wow.
The whole 20,000 people in the Arizona State Enormo Dome, whatever it was. But we laughed our asses off that night because we went to that ice cream restaurant afterwards, and Jane Whelan is hilarious, and the four of us were like four high school kids on a date.
How fun.
When I saw her 10 years later at an event in Hollywood, the first thing we talked about, Bill and Ted.
Oh, yeah. How can you not? I mean, that has to be so ingrained in your memory. That had to be an incredibly fun movie to work on. It was,
when I look back, I thought all movies were supposed to be fun like that, but they weren't.
Oh, it spoiled you. Oh, no.
It's a very young film, a lot of young people working on it, including myself.
Right.
And it was... it was guided well, and Steve Herrick did a fantastic job capturing Ed and Chris's vision of silliness. Because it's a silly movie. It's supposed to be silly and dumb.
It doesn't take itself too seriously, which is why I think it works so well.
Well, when you call somebody Beethoven instead of Beethoven, they're so dumb, but all they were dust in the wind,
Right. Well, they were classic comic characters. That's why it's so endearing, is they were like the Bowery Boys. It was just silly, good comic characters. They were written very, very well.
Alex actually likened them to silent comedians.
Yes.
When we were making the movie, he says, this is kind of like we're Laurel and Hardy in a silent movie.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy. That's exactly right.
That's what he likened it to. He's a smart guy. Alex, I haven't seen him since, unfortunately, and I've never seen Keanu since, I don't think.
Oh, wow.
Which is sad, but you'd think I would run into them. But I would go to dinner often with Tony and Clifford David I saw later. Al Leong, who played Genghis Khan.
Right.
I would see on other movies, and we would talk about Bill and Ted. And also, Freud and I would have lunch for a long time.
Freud and I would have lunch.
Yeah, I would lay on a couch. And
Rod Loomis.
But Rod Loomis was a wonderful guy, and he and I we'd have lunch in Toluca Lake occasionally for years afterwards.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I miss them all, and you just kind of lose touch with people. But it was an extraordinarily close-knit group of people, and we laughed our butts off every day.
That's very much the nature of Hollywood, is going from one family to another, because you're never working with the same people necessarily on any project. So
well, what I liken it to, it's now that I've done about 70 movies now.
Wow.
It's kind of like going to camp, and you'll go up to somebody like a grip and say, weren't we in cabin 7 3 years ago? But you'll say something like, did you and I do Bull Durham?
Oh, yeah.
What did we work on? And then you'll figure it out.
Right.
And sometimes you have to go to IMDb to do it, but you'll figure it out. And then, I'll see somebody, and I'll go to IMDb, and I'll come back to them, and I'll go up to them, and I'll go, Hook. Oh, yeah. Like a movie I'm doing right now. I'm doing this fantastic movie called Barely Lethal with Haley Steinfeld, Samuel L. Jackson, Jessica Alba, and Sophie Turner from Game of Thrones. It's hilarious.
Oh, wow.
And the stunt coordinator is a guy named Jeff. And I was looking at Jeff and I'm thinking, I think I just worked with this guy. Well, no, I worked with him 10 years ago on Walking Tall. But I thought I worked with him like a year ago. But no,
Sure.
I hadn't seen the guy in 10 years.
Oh, wow.
That's how fast things fly in the movie business because it's like a carnival and you keep moving and you pitch your tent here and there and occasionally you go home and see if you have a house.
Oh, yeah. This is what my house is like.
Yeah, it's like, oh, my bed. I forgot what that was like. But it's an itinerant way to make a living, but it's fun for those people who like travel
Yeah.
and who like to make new friends and who like to watch magic made every day in front of a camera.
I love that. Now, I have a story that I heard from one of the people who worked on the movie.
Yeah, because I could debunk some of these stories too.
Well, this was when they filmed at the sheriff's station.
Okay.
And he said that the foliage out there was, since it was winter, technically, there was no foliage on the trees. So they had to actually go and glue all the leaves on the trees.
That's true. That was in February because I had an old girlfriend visiting me, and I snuck out of the shooting on Saturday of that exterior scene where they hide the keys.
Ah.
I remember that very well because I was running away up to the rock resort or something with this old girlfriend. But
Uh-oh.
yeah, that's true about that. Because it,
Busted.
dead of winter. Yeah, now they know. It was Saturday. Come on, jeez.
I
Let me
know.
go.
You didn't want to sit around gluing leaves to trees.
Fun.
Because you probably would have been called in, hey, everybody, come on, glue a few leaves here. Let's get this done.
You know that scene, Sheriff's Department, was just shot in an old building, in an office building that had been abandoned, and we just dressed it as the sheriff's building. And it's actually a very intricate scene to shoot because the guys have to tie together what they're thinking up right there.
Right.
And to me, that's some of the best writing that Ed and Chris did throughout the whole film was that scene.
Yeah, that scene sort of took it to a whole other level where all of a sudden now it was, wait, this is getting complex. There's like this whole time trick of like thinking something and then it happening. It sort of blew my mind at the time I first saw the movie.
Well, yeah. We did, the scenes where we take Lincoln, Genghis Khan, and when we take Jane, that was all shot on the same day inside the Carefree Studios on little sets that we made, little teeny sets.
Ah.
And I can still see that being shot because, they were just single shots.
Right.
And there was a little bit more, I think, to each scene, but it's been cut out, of course.
Sure.
But I think
Sure.
some of the scenes that stay with me the most are the scenes we shot in the Metro Center and the mall. When
Right.
Jane is leading the workout. She takes over. I don't know if people ever got that in the movie, but she's such a leader that she takes over the calisthenic workout,
Right.
that's in there. And that Beethoven is playing on those electronic keyboards and draws a crowd. And
Genghis Khan is trashing Oshman's sporting
the
good.
sporting goods scene is, I think, one of the funniest scenes in the whole movie, and it's all Al Leong's doing. He bites the bat and...
Let's test this, see if it's good. Oh, yeah.
Now, the producers of the movie are in it. Joe Soisson and his partner, Michael Murphy. The production company was Soisson Murphy, who actually did the movie. They're both in the movie. In fact, Michael plays one of the teachers in the back of the room next to Bernie Casey when the guys are doing their final report in the auditorium. Yeah, Mike Murphy's the guy with the beard. And their assistant, Jim, who later became a grip, and I just saw him on a movie a couple of years ago. He plays the photographer who's trying to take a picture of Lincoln.
I wondered if that wasn't some kind of a cameo because
He doesn't look like an actor? Is that what you're trying to say?
he looks like he would be. No, he acted fine. I mean, what can you do? It's like ha ha ha,
It's funny, he became a grip. And I saw him, but he was the assistant to the producers.
Going back to the mall scene, you had a lot of extras
Yes.
and people in that. That had to be very complicated to keep track of what was going on, where and when and how.
Well, here's the thing. I'm actually in the movie.
Okay, where are you in the movie?
You can't really see me. When the movie first came out, I think I saw myself, but I wasn't sure. I'm in the crowd watching the guys get caught on the ice in the ice rink.
Oh, okay.
I'm in the crowd watching them get caught.
Oh, funny.
And I was there with my my then girlfriend Janet Elsasser, the production assistant. But we're in that scene at the Metro Center, and we may not even been an item yet, but we were hanging out already, and we were put in the scene by Steve Herrick, who needed more extras. That seems to happen a lot. Get in there. We don't have enough access. Get in there.
Well, yeah, it had to look like a crowded mall, and it's the middle of the night.
In Talladega Nights, I have a memorable extra cameo that I remember I was working on a movie with Dwayne Johnson, who's The Rock, right? And he
Right.
and I did 6 movies together, and we became pretty friendly. And he came out of his trailer one day, and he goes, "My God, I just saw you in Talladega Nights." I go, "Why? Really?" And he goes, "Yeah, you're in this scene." I go, "Yeah, that's me. I'm in it."
Oh, that's funny. Oh, look, there's David.
I've had several people come up. I thought that I couldn't be seen in it, but you can see me. But that
That's
happens
not
all the
funny.
time. And
Oh,
and so
yeah.
we were in Bill and Ted, and everybody was in there at one point, I think.
You mentioned Margene Holden,
Right.
who was the production assistant, and she was in the film. She played that student speaker, the one who said that Marie Antoinette today would say, "Why not let them eat fast food?"
That's right. The way they added that at the end for her. Mm-hmm. That's right. That's what got her the acting bug. Very good, Linda.
Yeah, I don't think I'd put together that she was a production assistant on the film before, so thank you
Yeah,
for
she
that.
was. She was a PA in the office, and she was a very straight-laced girl, and later went on to do some pretty spicy movies.
And you can look those up online,
And you
folks.
can look up your own Margene Holden movies up, but she's a sweetheart.
Well, okay, we haven't talked about Waterloo yet.
Oh, Waterloops.
Now, is it Waterloops or Loo?
It's
That's something I always thought it was Waterloops.
It's Waterloops, and
Okay, because that makes more sense.
supposed to be in San Dimas, but we shot it in, I think, Mesa, Arizona, is where this little place was. And I remember we were shooting the scene with Terry Camilleri, and
Who's awesome, by the
he's
way.
a great guy. Have you talked with Terry?
Yes, I have.
He's a neat guy, and I remember it was
Yes.
so cold when we shot those scenes, and it took so long to do them that Ed Solomon and I went next door and played a round of miniature golf. We did. We went next door and played miniature golf while they were shooting Waterloops. We could see it.
Oh my God! Like, okay, they're gonna be here a while. Let's just go do a round.
I could see the
Who won the game?
I think Ed did. I'll say that because he makes much more money than I do.
Hey, all right.
Ed went on to write Men in Black,
Yes.
among other things.
Yes.
And hopefully, you probably know more than I do, but I hope that there's going to be a Bill and Ted 3.
We hope so. It just sounds like they're at the point where they need to get the financing right now.
Now's the time. Well, God, that's kind of a no-brainer, isn't it?
I would think so. I don't know. Hollywood sometimes doesn't know a good thing when they see it.
Well, be most non-triumphant if they don't get a sequel going.
Be totally bogus.
Totally heinous.
And we want you as the unit publicist. Now, how does that work,
I
though?
better be.
Do you work with specific studios, or are you a free agent? You pretty much work
I
on.
was a little pissed off that I wasn't asked to do the second one, but then again, when
Yeah.
they did the second one, it was kind of a few years down the line, and other people were doing it, and they just didn't think like I did.
No, and I think that's totally wrong, and I think you should work on the third movie for sure. But then I also think that the original Princess Babes, Diane and Kim, should come back for the third movie too. Not that I didn't like Annette and Sarah, but we did notice they were different girls, people.
Yeah, what's that about?
I would love to get the story behind why that did or didn't happen.
It's like changing the kids in all the vacation movies.
Yeah.
What are you
It's true.
doing? We know that it was Juliette Lewis, in Christmas
Yeah.
Vacation, and we what are you doing?
I don't know. It was strange. And they recast both the girls, but they had, all the other actors were the same. Ted's dad and Bill's
It
dad
didn't
and
make any
Missy.
sense, did it? I have to talk to Diane about that.
Yeah, we need to get the story behind that. I hope to talk to Diane at some point as well for this. This is just our very beginning, so we have lots of people we hope to talk to eventually for this new podcast, which I'm very excited about.
Well, you have much bigger names than I to talk to about Bill and Ted.
You are the dude.
But I
though.
give you all the skinny.
You're the main man.
could be-
You're the one to talk. You have a very good memory. I'm very, very surprised.
I know for an old guy.
For as many movies as you've worked on.
Well, it holds a special place in my heart. I had a great time. It was my first movie, so your first is always, your first love is always the one you remember. But I had
Right.
such a good time, and it led me into a profession that I have really enjoyed, and so it was a special thing for me. And I'll always be thankful that Elizabeth Landon didn't want to leave her husband and go to Arizona.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
I still talk to her all the time. She was the head of publicity at Fox when I was there. I worked for her. She's my mentor.
Oh,
And
wow.
she knows Bob Cord extremely well. She had worked with Bob at Columbia. They were both at Columbia Pictures at one time before she went to Fox. And then he
Oh, wow.
started being a producer with Ted Field and Interscope Pictures. And Interscope Pictures did a lot of movies, like Buckaroo Banzai and a lot of other movies. And he went on and did 3 Men and a Baby, Bob Court,
Oh, wow.
which he took me along with him. And we did 3 Men and a Baby up in Toronto, actually.
And that was your second?
That was my second movie. So, don't go by IMDb. They never give you the right thing. And
Well, because they are doing by the release date, not by the.
right, I remember I was sitting. Let's see, where was I? Was doing, I think, Mississippi Burning, and I went to see Bill and Ted. I think so. No, no, no. I take it back. I was doing Steel Magnolias, and I went to Alexandria and saw Bill and Ted in Alexandria, Louisiana.
And what was your impression when you finally got to see? I mean, because it took a long time to come to the screen. Did you ever think it was going to come out?
Well, I had heard, what had happened, and that Orion was picking it up, and I knew that there was probably going to be some sort of delay when that happens. But I was pleasantly surprised when I saw it.
Now that leads me to an interesting question, though, because you were technically working for DEG
Yeah.
when the movie was shot. And then, of course, DEG dropped it and then Nelson and Orion picked it up. So
Right.
did you continue to work on it? What happens post-production? So I guess because you were the guy on the set, you stayed with it?
The good thing about being a unit publicist is that you get to leave, and you basically hand off everything to the studio, and you go on and do another movie because a unit publicist
Okay.
only works while the film is being shot.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's why we exist.
So you weren't involved with any of the post-production when DEG was grabbing their equipment and running?
I have no idea what was going on there. I just saw that it
Okay.
wasn't coming out when I thought it was going to come out, and I went, oh, So I don't know.
It just seemed like they kept coming out with trailers for the movie, and I kept, oh, that looks great. And then then you'd see another trailer a year later, and you're like, didn't this come out already? What happened?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of freaked out that it didn't come out. But, when I saw it, I just thought that they had captured everything, that Steve Herrick had done such a good job capturing, the vision of the two writers. And I was pleasantly surprised that Keanu became a big star. Everybody kind of broke out. Alex had a good career following that,
Yes.
and still has. And everybody had some success after, and that's nice to see.
And that's probably one of the reasons the websites and the fandoms I choose to follow tends to be ones where there's just like an incredible amount of talent involved, and I'm really impressed with the people who've worked on the movies or TV shows I'm doing. And Bill and Ted is absolutely a perfect example of that, because I mean, here are, I'm talking to you, the unit publicist, and you've made 70 plus movies now. This is your passion, your career, and it's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, and to me, it was just a really interesting way to start, and taught me a lot about the film business. And it made me want to make more movies. And what became a temporary job for me became my main profession.
Right. So Bill and Ted changed your life.
You know what? Yeah, I'll stand in that line. It did. It did. Very pleasantly so.
Well, David, I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm sure you have plenty more stories to share, so maybe we'll have you back for another podcast, and maybe we'll have a look at some of those pictures you have sometime. Maybe eventually, if we do a video podcast, you can be part of that. We'd love to have you back.
Well, I'll see if I can find those photos. I know I have them. It's just a matter of me getting at them. But I saved a lot because it was my first movie. I saved an awful lot of stuff. And I have a lot of black and white contact sheets, actually, of the daily shooting of my photographer that I kept my copy of.
Oh, nice.
And that's the entire shooting of the movie. And I think that you guys would love to see that.
Oh, absolutely, because we have never been able to find the missing footage from the scenes that did not make the movie. So anything that can help us piece those together is fantastic.
Well, I'll do it.
We'd love it.
I'm certain that I can do it. I'm going to go check it out. I'm making a movie in Atlanta right now, but I'm going home for Christmas, and I'll look it up.
Oh, good. That's wonderful. Well, thank you again for taking the time to talk to us, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Well, my pleasure. Anytime. And, all we are is dust in the wind, dude.
Once again, I'd like to thank David Linck for taking the time out of his very busy schedule to talk to us. David was actually the first interview we did for this podcast. Alex's Kickstarter campaign was a time-sensitive topic, so my apologies again to David for kicking you back to the second episode, but we are so glad you joined us, and we really hope to have you on again. Dave is a great guest, and I hope you enjoyed listening to all of his stories. I'm sure he has many, many more to share. So in closing, I would like to play a song for you by my friend Steve Bonino, and you can look him up at his website, which is stevebonino.com. That's Steve, S-T-E-V-E, Bonino, B-O-N-I-N-O.com. Our introductory and closing music are excerpts from a song called Big Brother, which is featured on Steve Bonino's Peace Rocks album. We're also using an excerpt of a song of his called True North as our news intro. And as I said, Steve is really all about love and peace. Much of his music is about peace and harmony, and he's the real deal. He exemplifies the spirit of be excellent to each other. He really does. He's a great guy. And for Christmas, I would like to feature a song of his from his Peace Rocks Sessions album called Peace on Earth, which is very fitting for this time of the year. And I hope you'll enjoy listening to this. Have a safe and wonderful holiday, and we'll be back for our third episode in the new year. For now, this is Steve Bonino with Peace on Earth.
Cold hearts, dark times, oh, to feel the light shine. War games, man's shame, even though I worry for the future. Deep inside I still believe that in spite of all we see, someday there is gonna be peace on earth. Earth, you are the father and the mother, and if we destroy, there is no other. So dream now with me. Soon we will disarm the final army. Deep inside I still believe that in spite of all we see, someday there is gonna be peace on earth. So dream, oh dream, let's dream. Peace on
Bill and Ted's Excellent podcast is published by Bill and Ted's Excellent Online Adventure. Visit us at billandted.org, where you will find links to us on Facebook, Twitter, and our fan forums. You can also email us at lindakbabe@billandted.org if you have any feedback or suggestions. And don't forget, before you begin any temporal journey, do not forget to wind your watch. Or, in modern terms, don't forget to charge your smartwatch. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, characters and images, trademark and copyrighted 1989-2003, Creative Licensing Corporation, all rights reserved. The motion picture Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, copyright 1989, Orion Pictures Corporation, all rights reserved. The motion picture Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, copyright 1991, Orion Pictures Corporation Incorporated, all rights reserved. Tune in again next time for Bill and Ted's Excellent Podcast.